So, welcome back to part 2 of CreationClan. If you missed the first part of this, I'll give a short summary by recycling the first minute or so of the original video, but if you want to skip, I'll have the time to skip to below.
I just had an amazing idea. Many Manai people want to collab with me, but since my personal clans and lore are special to me, what if every person created one OC and made our own community clan? Gasp face.
Wholeheartedly agree. Doing a slow head turn.
It would be special to our server. I think that would be so fun. It would be structured like every other clan vid I've done, just with credits to each person. I could make it to where their description / backstories and all assertion length, and I could read them off. It's the first group vid I'd be doing. I'm finally glad to announce, our server will be creating its own clan. The chosen 20 cats will be featured in my 10k special on YouTube. It will be similar to a clan generator video where I cover their name, description, personality, and backstory.
Alright, so if it wasn't already clear enough with that intro, I let everyone in my Discord server go completely ham, with a few rules of course, and create our very first community-made clan. With everyone's submissions, this lovely group of cats came together as CreationClan to face their destiny. Submissions were open for less than 2 weeks, and boy let me tell you, okay, so I thought I was only gonna get maybe 20 to 30 applications on this. Well, we got...
Oh no! Oh yeah!
And I completely underestimated everything about this process, but here we are, CreationClan! The rules were simple. 1, you have to submit your character through a designated Google form. 2, only 1 submission per person. 3, all roles will be chosen in a raffle style, so it's randomized and everyone gets equal opportunity. 4, there will only be 20 slots. 5, don't steal other people's art, OCs, or ideas. 6, don't argue with others. 7, don't use a pre-existing character. 8, don't make your character completely buck wild, aka just don't make it a Mary Sue. 9, your character is subject to change along with the story. And 10, the 20 cats chosen will be featured on YouTube, which is this video. Alright, so here's the spinny wheels choices of the cats for the second round. And now that that's done and over with, let's jump straight into the cat content. First category up is queens. Faith Dream is a short-furred calico she-cat with green eyes. She was born Faith to a litter of one. Her mother, Honey, talked a lot about her father and the love that comes along with having a family. Faith grew attached to the idea of one day having a family of her own. Her mother's love was a warm, happy, comforting feeling that she sought to share with others moons down the road. Unfortunately, her mother one day caught an illness and passed away when Faith was merely 7 moons old. Instead of being riddled with sadness and regret, she held on dearly to the memory of her caring tone and kind words, and swore to be happy for her sake. One of the local housefolk brought her in after the event. At first, this was fine, but as time went on, it progressively felt more and more like being trapped with no means of escape. The stories she was told about outside life lingered on her mind. However, she was hesitant due to the fear of uncertainty. Here, she was safe. Who knew what was out there? One night, she heard scratching from outside of a window. Investigating cautiously, she spotted a black and white Tom on the windowsill, sitting in a crouched position. She followed his gaze over to a blackbird in the yard, and watching in utter amazement as he effortlessly caught his prey and ate it. She ended up yelping with anticipation. In a surprise, he whipped around and met eyes with Faith. From then on, they talked through the slightly cracked window for moons and moons, staying up chatting with one another. This continued on for a long time until one night, Patch didn't show up. Faith saw this as a sign to leave and find him. On her search for Patch, she stumbled across a new group of cats and asked to join them in hopes of being able to fulfill the dream of raising kits of her own. Moving on to the 5 apprentices. Harpaw is a blue cream calico tom with long fluffy fur and dark green eyes. Harpaw was born next to a river as an only kit. Unfortunately, his parents were eaten by a rabid fox when he was just about able to walk, so he had to forage for food and shelter, relying on his own underdeveloped instincts to guide him along the way. After only a few days without the nutrients he relied on his mother for, he grew rather weak and frail. One day in the blistering rain, he accidentally stepped into the strong flooding river for the first time and had to swim with no practice to get out. As a result, he traveled too far away from his nest to go back, being swept up to a nearby riverbank. The frantic splashing and gurgling meows warned the cats in CreationClan whose camp was nearby. He was recovered from the water, gasping for air. Even after, he cried loudly and woke up the entire camp from their slumber. He was named Harpaw by the cats because of his loud and attention-grabbing entrance. After a long several-moon recovery period, he was old enough to be able to begin apprenticing. He wound up staying distant from the other apprentices and enjoyed being with the older cats. He minds his own business and is almost always out of the loop. He stays vigilant when hunting and he never misses small details, which the other apprentices do. But this distracts him and leads him to go on tangents and getting lost a lot. He's rather clumsy and always trips over his paws, but he's learning along the way. Shadowpaw, previously just called Shadow, is a medium-furred, sun-bleached black cat with hazel eyes. Shadow was born to a loving family with 2 older brothers. He was always a very happy and bubbly kit who was too curious for his own good, finding playful curiosity in the most unlikely things. He was born as a she-cat, but soon realized that being called one didn't describe how he felt anymore. At a young age, his parents fell victim to a hunter's trap, and they were promptly taken away and released far away from the area that they called home. They told their kits that if they were alive and well, to meet them at the largest tree in the forest. His 2 siblings were persistent on leaving home to find them, but Shadow was extremely hesitant to the idea. The unknown dangers of the outside world were frightening. One day, they decided to leave without Shadow, telling him that if he wanted to stay in the nest forever, that was his own choice. However, they were going to set out and find him. Shadow reluctantly stayed behind, and by sunrise, the young cat had regretted his choices. He didn't want to be separate from his only family. He lost their scent trail and wound up wandering the forest for several moons. The betrayal and abandonment laid heavy on his heart, and he swore to never socialize or grow attached to anyone ever again. Soon, he stumbled across a few members of CreationClan and asked to join for safety. When becoming an apprentice, he started to socialize more again, but still held himself back from making bonds with other cats. Instead, he found comfort in his creative side. He would make random inventions similar to the trap his parents were caught in to help himself hunt or battle. Through praise for his outlandish creativity, he's blossomed into socializing more often. He's got a long way to go, but he's getting there. Spicepaw, previously just known as Spice, is a ginger and gray tabby she-cat with long fur and light blue eyes. Spice was only 6 moons old when she came across the clan and joined, leaving her previous life as a rogue behind. The lone life was rather comforting to her, but at times got quite scary. She set out in hopes of finding other cats to group up with, but had no idea how to ask someone to become allies with her. Most would take her short stature as a potential weakness, so she hoped feigning friendliness would help. Upon joining CreationClan, she found that she was very shy and anxious towards the other cats that had judged her or spoke of her, making her feel very closed off and awkward towards new cats that introduced themselves. She didn't feel quite right and deemed herself a bit of an outcast, even questioning whether grouping up with these cats had been the right decision. Clan life was a bit odd and off-putting for the first few moons since she grew up and lived by herself in the forest prior to finding them. When Spicepaw finally got enough confidence to speak to the other apprentices, her assurance in herself grew and she became more willing to pipe up and speak aloud in a group. She found that she was still very quiet in larger groups, yet was quite loud and energetic with cats that she knew well and were comfortable with. The bond she made with the other cats around her lulled her worries into silence, and she finally felt at home with the others around her. Beepaw is a short-furred brown tabby tom with blue eyes. He grew up in a smaller group of she-cats who had banded together for safety and helped one another raise their kits. They were settled in a small nearby cave that provided lush foliage for protection and a vast amount of prey. They almost never left the cave, and Bee grew very attached to his mother, unwilling to socialize with the other kits. Even from birth, Bee was a quiet kit, which left room for the other kits to single him out and pick on him easily. His mother was supportive of him and never questioned his quiet nature. She would even compliment him on how gentle he was. Upon the addition of a new mother and her older kits, Bee became the center of attention in the worst way possible. Each kit picked on him regardless of the harsh scoldings others would receive. Instead of defending himself, he would just let them have their laugh, seemingly unbothered. This continued on even when the mothers began telling Bee that he should just play with the other cats and blame his lack of social skills on them bullying him. Over time, this caused him to get more brash and start fighting back for himself, but in the process growing far more independent than the rest. When he was around 7 moons old, Beepaw decided to leave the group he grew up in, aiming to start a new one of his own where he would never let cats fall into such a harsh social hierarchy. His brash tone stuck with him upon finding CreationClan, and others saw him as intimidating. However, he turned out to be a wonderful apprentice who, despite being clumsy, excelled at most things. Cherrypaw is a short-furred, cream-colored she-cat with brown rosettes, a striped tail, and pale blue eyes. Growing up in a different clan far off, Cherrypaw had a friend named Viperpaw who was quite odd throughout their kithood. Almost as soon as they started their apprenticeship, she revealed she was training in the Dark Forest. The idea scared Cherrypaw a lot, but her mentor nipped all of her fears in the bud and told her that the Dark Forest cats were simply misunderstood, and the fabled rumors were wrong. One day, Viperpaw called her a coward, and as one does, she went off to prove her wrong. She stalked a tom who was on patrol until she found her chance to strike. She panicked once she had him tackled down, and before she knew what she was doing, he was dead. She felt the presence of another cat looming over her during this process. Her mentor found her trembling and sobbing over his body, so under the pressure of her friend and mentor, she herself started training in the Dark Forest. She hated the power and guilt, but was terrified she was going to be punished with her life for leaving, so she never stopped. She got into a fight with Viperpaw and accidentally took her life trying to defend herself, not recognizing who she was fighting against anymore. Suddenly, none of this felt right, and Cherrypaw began to spiral uncontrollably. She ran away from her clan for moons on end, not stopping until she was so far out that she knew she couldn't make it back. She soon convinced herself that everything that had happened in such a short time was just a dream, refusing to believe any of it was real. There was no way any of it had possibly happened. She sat on the outskirts of CreationClan for moons, observing, feeling that this was the place she was destined to be born into. After succumbing to her exhaustion, she passed out just outside of camp, waking up to being inside the medicine den. From then on, she just kind of stayed in CreationClan, her memory skewed and pretty much suppressed. She had an awful nagging feeling under a layer of sharp-tongued responses and sassiness. Snowpaw is a gray and white long-furred she-cat with curly tufts of fur, a long tail, and hazel brown eyes. She was found by a member of CreationClan in the aftermath of a previous battle. The previous band of rogues she was born to were ruthless and trained kits far too early to fight and hunt for the better of the bunch. The mentors of the group showed little to no hesitation in belittling kits to hone their skills, often talking them down. For Snowpaw specifically, they would say, "What are you doing, stupid kit?" Those words were taunting and consistently echoed in her mind. They trained aimlessly for several moons until one day, a rival group of cats set out to take the group down. Many cats lost their lives that day, mostly kits, and the rest of the group had fled the scene. Snowpaw laid amongst the masses of ripped fur, unconscious, believed to have succumbed to the battle as a result of the horrible territory war. Twitching and quiet whimpering led the savior cat to her aid, where she was brought to CreationClan. She doesn't remember a lot of her past, but had to learn how to speak and still struggles, and is slowly remembering parts of what happened. Slowly easing into the calm nature of clan life, Snowpaw was able to relax a bit. When it comes to anything besides training, Snowpaw is an energetic and fun young she-cat. She's always down to play games, loves practicing with her apprentice friends, and absolutely adores helping out around camp with the elders, kits, and whatever needs doing. She's bubbly and smart and full of care for her clanmates and those around her. However, she lacks self-confidence, and this throws off the she-cat, causing her to often miss catching prey or messing up in fighting practice when she is aware of being watched by a cat older than her. No matter how hard she tries, she can't remember why she is very sensitive to the phrase, "What are you doing?" and being called stupid. Moving on from the apprentices, we have the two kits. Spruce Kit is a medium-furred, warm brown she-cat with green eyes. She was born as just Spruce to a small family with a few siblings, her mother, and her aunt. Her mother and aunt had previously been kitty pets who are now out on their own after learning about upcoming kits. Her mother never enjoyed the indoor life much and longed to be out in the wild where she originally grew up. After being born in a series of fateful, rough events, Spruce was left in the middle of CreationClan's camp by her mother, who had felt she had a better chance of survival that way. Each of her siblings were dropped off somewhere different. Spruce was immediately taken in by the clan's queen, Faith Dream, and dubbed Spruce Kit. She has little to no memory of her original siblings, but sometimes catches a similar scent to theirs and gets rather emotional. Spruce took it to heart that Faith Dream was her mother, and no one ever told her otherwise. She is a quiet and shy kit who always wanders and gets herself into trouble, especially with the apprentices, because she longs to play with them and grow just as big and strong. Lark Kit is a medium-furred, light hazel-colored tom with dark brown stripes, white freckles, and golden yellow eyes. Lark Kit is a curious, adventurous kit with high energy and a wild personality. He's a little mischievous and chaotic as well. However, he wouldn't even harm a fly. Lark was born a rogue with his twin brother Sparrow. They used to live in a fallen oak tree. However, when Lark and Sparrow were merely 1 moon old, their parents suddenly disappeared without warning. The kits never knew why, but felt deep down that there was a looming sense of danger. They were on high alert for any sounds and managed to make it for several weeks on their own. A group of cats ended up finding the young kits. The frightened little kits thought these cats may have been responsible for the disappearance of their family. This idea frightened them greatly, but unfortunately it was too late and Lark Kit needed to trust these cats to help him and his brother. Sparrow's health was steadily declining and they were left with no choice but to trust this group of strangers. In an awful turn of events, Sparrow passed not too long after being found. They take Lark in his weakened, delirious state back to camp where he is promptly nursed back to health. Now, 2 moons later, Lark remembers only faintly about his past, but remembers his brother clearly. Lark, now Lark Kit, vows to become a strong warrior in memorial to his brother. And last but not least, the elders! Leopardstep is a medium-furred, pale brown tom with a white muzzle and paws and amber eyes. Even though he may seem like a gentle giant, he would prefer the sound of peace and quiet. Leopardstep got his name from stepping steadily into a position of knowledge no matter what came his way. He always had wonderful advice to give others and took on a stern yet caring role towards the younger cats. He became a well-respected member of the clan, and the others relied on him without a doubt. Out of the blue, Leopardstep stumbled into a web of misfortune, and a tragic accident had left him with trauma to his head. The next thing he knew, he was awakened by the smell of herbs and a nauseating dizziness. His skull pounded underneath mounds of cobwebs. After moons and moons of recovery and a longing to go back to his normal duties, his injuries healed to the best of their abilities, leaving him with only 1 eye and 1 ear. Despite his pleas and constant nagging to be given permission to go back to his regular duties, Setting Star never allowed him to regain his title and silenced him to the Elder's Den. His safety was the leader's priority, and she never intended to harm the Tom's fighting spirit. Leopardstep is entirely unaware of how bad the damage has actually affected him, and while it's obvious to other cats, means nothing to Leopardstep. In his mind, nothing changed other than his vision. Out of all the elders, he still goes out hunting because his bones aren't as old as they look, and it's the only thing Setting Star permits him to do alongside the company of other cats. Honeysnap is a cream-colored classic tabby tom with long, scraggly fur and golden eyes. Honeysnap used to be a part of a clan of travelers who never settled anywhere. He's been all over and seen a lot of things and also lost a lot of cats, but with such a liminal upbringing, he's zen about it. Cats come and go from your life, and that's okay. There's always new places to go and new people to meet. At his old age, he's no longer built for the hard life of traveling. He has bad hips and a pronounced limp, so he made the decision to stop traveling and settle as a loner. After finding and joining CreationClan, it ironically turns out that he's not really built for being a loner. After some time, he finds out that he likes being around other cats a bit too much. He's continuously telling stories about the cool stuff he definitely didn't really do. Or did he? He probably got that scar by stepping on a thorn, but what if he really did fight a badger? He treats everything like it's a joke, so you'll never know. The old man loves kits because they listen to him and they know how to have fun, so his company became a favorite pastime to those waiting to gain their apprenticeships. Alright, so that's everyone. This is not the last you guys will be seeing of CreationClan. We have lots more in store and many things planned for the future. I'll be hosting events similar to this in the future through my Discord, so if you're interested, the link is going to be down below. And thank you guys so much for the overwhelming amount of support and love for my art and my channel. And lastly, since these 2 vids are my 10K special, thank you for 10K! I didn't think I would actually get there, but here we are!